I think he slapped Chris Rock because his wife. He was laughing up until he looked at his wife.
He was.
Then his whole demeanor changed. I haven't seen that clip. I haven't seen him look at his wife.
There's no shot of him ever actually looking at his wife.
Right. There's a moment in there where he changes from laughing and having just sitting back and relaxing and chilling, watching a show and laughing at a comedian, right? Because I'm in the front row and I got to do that. And then there's a moment where it changed, and unfortunately we don't get to see that moment. But I would love to know what he got hijacked by emotion.
Yeah, because it's so bizarre because when I watched the video over until it essentially has come out that it was a real unplanned slap. I'm sitting there, I'm watching, Chris Rock's doing his thing. He does the G.I. Jane 2 joke, which is a stupid joke to begin with. But then, you see Will Smith and you just see him, just doing the, the laugh that he's got. And he's just laughing. And Jada's kind of just, rolling her eyes a little bit in a deep sort of annoyed sigh. And then you go back to the cut. The camera goes back to Chris and he's laughing and then starts to talk a little bit. And then just suddenly, here comes Will Smith. Just out of nowhere. Just suddenly it's a complete polar opposite dynamic shift where he was laughing and then suddenly now he's pissed off.
He goes into fight, flight, or freeze mode.
Exactly.
And he did not flee and he did not freeze. He did the other one. And a curiosity that has been going through my head since this is like, okay, how does this get justified? How can Will Smith not get canceled? Which he's probably too big to cancel, too big to fail, too big to jail, right? I mean, he's an immensely powerful individual in Hollywood. This is something that's stuck in my mind. Would it have been better for him to have been stoic, to not show any emotion, right? Since that's something that is toxic or is said about toxicity, toxic masculinity, is that stoicism, the no showing of emotion. And what he did there was show pure emotion in his actions. And so I've kind of tried to go through that in my head because once I started thinking about, well, he wasn't thinking. That is not what Will Smith would go and do.
No.
He's not Russell Crowe, right? Russell Crowe gets in fights all the time. So
used to.
I don't know if he still does. I know he got in a couple of fights like on airplanes and stuff, and it's like, and in bars and whatever. And it's like, well, I mean, Russell Crowe, I'd expect him to go up there and sock Chris Rock. Will Smith, I would not expect that. That seemed very out of place for him.
I think it's about the control, the self-control. Like you don't want to bottle up your emotions, but on the other end of the spectrum, you want to be able to control it when it takes over. I like that emotionally hijacked turn. That's interesting. Right. And then Johnny Spaz, you sent out that meme. You texted us that meme about Order 66. Like, that'd be so interesting to see that moment,
right?
Because they cut that shot. Like I'd love to see that moment when he transformed.
It was split. It was a switch, man. A switch. He was laughing, and then the next thing you know, he's walking up on stage. Like it was live. There was no cut through. There was no cut there and edit. There's got to be film of it.
Well, they cut away from him and went back to Chris Rock.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you see Chris Rock. He's like, oh, here comes Richard. And then Will Smith is walking up, but we don't see that transformation take place from laughing.
You saw his wife
to fight Will.
You saw his wife's face though.
Yeah, we saw the face, but then we didn't even see Will go and make a turn to look at her. He was just still looking and, smiling and laughing, and that was it.
He may not have had to. They were very close to each other. They've been together for decades.
They've been through a lot together.
If she sighs or if she makes a noise, that jerk or again or whatever she's going to say under her breath, and he hears that and it processes in his head, because his whole job right then is what? Sit there and smile when everybody else is laughing, laugh. That's all you're supposed to do, Will Smith. You're not supposed to do anything else. Clap for everybody that wins and smile and laugh. And if you don't win, sit quietly and respectfully. And something threw that off for him.
Well, Chris Rock did have a history of making fun of.
Well, he made one joke.
No, it was a 2016 Oscars where he's like, whoa, Jada is going to boycott the Oscars. He's like, that's like me boycotting Rihanna's panties.
Right.
It's
but
like,
he
I'm
was
not
never
invited.
I mean, and that's
I'm like,
that's a much more intellectual joke, right?
it is,
Like,
but I mean, it's just the whole point. To me, it just shows a complete disregard for for what is appropriate. And when you know you're an example, and I know he knows he's an example setter because of the rap and his whole conflict with people giving him the business for not putting, curse words in his raps. It was a huge thing. This was way back, but it was a thing. So I don't believe that Will Smith don't know the difference between right and wrong, and I think he showed a complete disregard for it. But what do I know? I don't know these people, and for all I know, it was staged. Who knows?
Well,
I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying I don't know. I don't agree with it. I think he should know better. He has kids, and he's been known as a family person, and I thought he was a good actor and
wholesome.
I just don't like what he did. I'm like, dude, I don't think you should be canceled for this, but there needs to be consequences for this.
Well, I think that
I don't know what they would be. I'm just saying.
He's lost his status.
Yeah.
Right? That's why we're all talking about it, because he doesn't have that status anymore, and now he's a work in progress.
He's going to kind of become a joke on the whole dynamic of that kind of thing, though. Which,
okay, have you guys ever been pissed off like that? Come on.
Yeah,
but I've never been a world famous star either.
Yeah, I don't think that changes the human condition.
No, but it would change my outlook on how I behave.
Okay, so
if you're in such a raw emotional moment?
Exactly. In that moment, he did not have his faculties. Like his prefrontal lobe was not what was in charge there.
Yeah, well, given the nature of my work, I'm like, if you can't have patience and you can't act right in front of children, then you shouldn't be there.
Well, let's break this down a little bit. So what we want to do today is look at this from the perspective of healthy masculinity. And
yeah.
I think what a lot of the conversation on the internet is missing is really the perspective of Jada, which really should be the thing that's centered here. So I found this this great clip from this body language expert who really broke down the whole video. And because Johnny, you mentioned this idea that, was this staged or was this some kind of stunt? And when you look at when you break it down by the body language, it's pretty clear that this was a case of raw emotion, kind of what Mers you were describing. So let's look at this clip.
Well, real quick, we are talking about Oscar-winning actors.
No, I'm right there with you. I was going to mention that too. Like, if there was anybody that could fake this, but I would say this: micro expressions are very, very difficult to fake.
Mm-hmm.
Also, not a detail that we can see right here. So
let's take a look.
And look at her eyes. We see something very telling. Her eyes go up and then they come back down as her head backs up a little and she just looks at him. This is two things. The first part is, here we go again. So this is something so it's kind of like a slower eye roll. And we do this when something that we're used to dealing with comes up again. Oh, here we go again, not this again. Like she's dealt with this kind of joke before. And then she comes down and the second part of that was disappointment. She's looking at him like, really, Chris Rock? Like, you're really gonna go there? All this together, for me, if you look at her, we're seeing a very vulnerable moment for her. It's honestly heartbreaking. It's not something I would ever wanna see in my spouse or in a friend or in anyone really, where we see this whole collapse of her body language as her eyes go to a place of like, just not this again, not now. And then that comes back, settles on him like, come on.
We don't want to watch a loved one be crushed.
Or anybody.
And we want to stop that from happening. I mean, that's my immediate response. I do not want that to happen to that person that I care about.
My first filter, though, is if you can't take a joke of being roasted, you shouldn't be in that area. And if you know you're going to be the butt of a joke, then...
I think that's a fair point. One thing to consider is, for Jada, this is a medical condition, right? Alopecia. It's not something that she chose. She didn't shave her head because of a part she was playing in a movie. This is a condition that she's been dealing with. And I think in humor, that's sort of a line Like, if you can tease, anything's fair game if it's sort of a choice, but if you're kind of born that way, or if it's involuntary, it's a line. And I see the point that, like, okay, you should know that you're going to show up to the Oscars, there's going to be some roasting going on. And I think that's really the crux of the debate here, is like, a comedian has the right to free speech, has the right to make whatever joke they want. The butt of the joke has the right to take that joke however they see fit. Now, what should Will have done in that situation? Should he have gone and become violent? That's another debate. I think first we need to understand why they felt so affronted by this. They were insulted, and this was a running thing. Chris has targeted them in jokes before. I'm sure that this is a sore subject for Jada. It's something that she's been having to deal with. If it was me sitting there and I'm not feeling that joke, I don't know if I'm gonna fake it. Like, if I think you're out of line, I reserve the right to express that. So I don't have any problem with Jada not feeling that joke and not going along, ha ha ha. Now, should Will have done what he did? I think that's another debate.